Hi, my name is Cole. I'm a student here at TCD in the robotics program, and throughout the semester working on our robots, we have learned so many amazing skills. The first thing that we learned was the basics of programming in Python. So we kind of learned about control structures, variables, loops, and being able to model real-world scenarios on the computer. So for example, in class, we did a little challenge of how can we make a student, like in their grades, how can we store that on the computer and be able to access that information? So something like that is super useful in the real world, and being able to do that on the computer, is amazing, and learning those skills, which we did, was awesome. And then the next big thing that we learned was CAD, the computer design. It was really hard at first. It was a lot of work, about like 3 or 4 days of learning the concepts before you're able to actually take them into use. But after learning how to use all the different features on the CAD software that we use on Shape, it was so much fun to be able to design something, out of thin air, out of scratch, and make your ideas come to life. Imagination was really the only limitation in designing with CAD. And then the great thing about designing with CAD on the computer is that with the 3D printers here, within a day and a half of me designing my designs, I was able to have them in my hands and see my ideas come to life, and that really just sparked a passion. And I don't want to stop working on it when I have to leave. And then after the parts got printed and I had the base, the next big thing was designing and wiring the inside, so the building process. And it was amazing hands-on experience for learning how to solder. I had never soldered before, and learning through this class was absolutely amazing. That's a skill that I know I'm going to need in engineering in the future, whether electrical, mechanical. Soldering is an amazing skill that I feel like a lot of more people should know. And then another big concept we learned about were some electrical engineering concepts, because when I was troubleshooting, sometimes only one of the motors would spin, or two of the motors would spin, but not the third or the fourth. So we learned how to use a multimeter and diagnose our own problems. So with the multimeter, I was able to check if the motors were getting voltage, and I was able to diagnose the problem and then fix it through the engineering and design process. Just keep on reiterating and trying new ideas and seeing if they work. And then finally, after all the troubleshooting and soldering and wiring and building, which was amazing hands-on experience, the biggest challenge was the programming to get our Arduino compatible microchip communicating with our Raspberry Pis. To have a Wi-Fi compatible chip communicate with the computer it was very complex and took a lot of code and time and troubleshooting. But learning those skills on how to diagnose a program and see what's wrong, what do I need to fix, and doing that process of installing libraries and looking at code and variables and just running through it, and learning those skills of how to diagnose problems and then solve them. The troubleshooting aspect of this was absolutely amazing, and I feel like the engineering and design process that we followed throughout the semester is super valuable and taught us all the skills that we're going to need to know for futures in engineering or robotics, because robotics is just a culmination of so many different engineering fields that are so complex and have so many ideas, which is why this class was so amazing to get us introduced into the mechanical concepts of building, the electrical engineering concepts of wiring and soldering and figuring out circuits and the multimeter, and then the software engineering on the computer, being able to diagnose our software and see what's wrong, what do I need to fix, what do I need to change, and then being able to do that, and then finally the end result of having your creation come to life and be able to move, designing an RC car completely from scratch pretty much, and that was amazing. And then this is the final result. This is the UI that we designed to be able to communicate between our Raspberry Pi and our robots.